Hey everybody, this is Nina with Walla Stamping. This is the project that I would like to share with you today. I wanted to create a card that was simple and elegant, and I feel like I've accomplished that here. I've used the Paisley and Posey stamp set, and I just really like this stamp set. I think it's so pretty. I've always liked Paisley's anyway, but there's so many pretty different stamps, and I combined several of them together to get the look on this card. So first of all, I'll share with you what items you're going to need to create this card. You're going to need a piece of cardstock in basic black that is cut 8 inches by 6 inches. Then you're going to score it and fold it on the 4-inch line. You also need a piece of basic black that is cut 3 1/2 by 1 1/4. You'll need 3 pieces of Whisper White. 2 of them are going to be cut at 5 3/4 by 3 3/4, and then you'll need 1 additional piece that is cut at 3 1/4 by 1 inch. So let's move this to the side and go ahead and get started creating this card. So like I said, your first piece of basic black, I have scored it at the 4-inch mark. I'm folding it in half, and then I'm just going to burnish it with my bone folder. Then I'm going to bring in a piece of scrap paper, because I'm going to do my stamping next, and put 1 piece of my Whisper White down. I'm using my black ink stamp pad, and let me show you how I get my pattern on my paper without having to stamp each of those stamps individually. I place them all on my block in the pattern that I want to achieve on my paper. So what I do is, before I attach my stamps to my block, and see they just peel right off, I lay them face down on top of my paper in the pattern that I want it to be in. Then once I've got that laid out the way I want it, I take my acrylic block and I just lay it down on top of those stamps, and when I pull it up, they're all stuck to my block and ready to go. I will tell you though, when you've got this many stamps that you're trying to stamp all at one time, you do need to make sure that you get plenty of ink on there and put a good amount of pressure so that the ink does transfer to your paper neat without any, I call them ghosts, where there's a little piece that doesn't get enough ink on it. So I'm going to line this up with the left edge of my paper, lay the block down, and I'm just going to push down on this nice and firmly to make sure that all of that ink transfers from my stamp to my paper. Okay, see that right there? That's what I'm talking about. That is what I call a ghost stamp. Now I can fill that in with a black Stampin' Up marker if I want to. I can choose to leave it like that if I want to. But anyway, that is what I was trying to tell you, that you need to make sure you get plenty of ink on your stamps and make sure that you apply enough pressure to get that ink to transfer to your paper. But that's only if you're using a bunch of stamps like this at one time. Oops, I'm going to take this off, because if I stamp it like this, they're going to end up on top of each other or right beside each other, and that is not what I want. So I take off that little curly cue. I'm going to come in and I'm going to turn this at slightly an angle. Press down firmly. We don't want another ghost stamp. That one did much better. Now see, this area and this area, I feel like it's naked. And I'm just going to get some ink on this flower right here. And I'm going to bring it in right there at the edge. Let me get this up here. Stamp it. Flip it around. Ink that up again. Stamp it right there. Okay, now I feel like everybody's got clothes on. So on the inside of this card, see how I've got the stamps at the bottom and the top? That's what I'm going to do here. So I'm just going to ink up the flower and that paisley and just put it at the bottom of this paper. Press down. Nice. Turn it around, ink that up again, press down. Okay. Let's bring in our black cardstock. you'll want to put some adhesive. I'm just using snail on the part that you stamped for the inside of the card. Then when you get ready to stick it down, just line it up in such a way so that you've got an even border all the way around. That part's done. So easy. Let's flip this one over. Do the same thing. Put some snail on the back. I always put a little dot in the middle too. Bring the front of the card in. Line that up. There. Very nice. Okay, so next you're going to want to adhere the small piece of cardstock that was cut at 3.5 by 1 1/4. Put some snail on the back of that. And what I've done is I have put it on the top third portion of the card. That's just where I wanted it to go. Now you could always change this up if you wanted to. You could turn your card this way and put your paper like that. Anyway, this is the way that I wanted to do it. Next, I'm going to stamp my sentiment that's like this on this piece of Whisper White. Let me bring that scrap paper back in. Alright, so I've got my scrap piece of paper in and my small piece of Whisper White. I'm going to take that same acrylic block, and since those are at that end and this is such a huge block, I'm not going to worry about removing those. And my sentiment says, "Thank you for your part in my journey." And I'm going to stick that down to my block, bring in my ink, get that sentiment inked up nice, and then line this up in the center of that piece of cardstock and stamp her down. Turned out perfect. Okay, let's move this scrap paper out of the way, bring this back in, and I'm going to stick these down with dimensional. I just cut some little hunks out of my dimensionals because I don't like to waste anything if I can help it. And these I just cut around the edges of my dimensionals so that I can use them up and not throw them in the trash. So then what you're going to do with this is line that up in the center, making sure that the edge around it is equal as possible, that you're not shoved up to the top or to the bottom or to one side or the other. And look at my fingers. Y'all, every time I stamp, I get my fingers in the ink somehow or another. I don't know how I manage it, but I do. Going to bring in the iced, where is it? Iced rhinestones embellishments. And I'm going to use 3 of these smaller ones. This card is going to turn out just slightly different from this one. So I will put my rhinestones here, here, and here, and as you can see, they ended up in different places on that one. But it's okay. Every one of these cards are sisters. They're not twins. You see what I'm saying? They don't have to be absolutely identical. And I think what I may do is put this rhinestone here instead of down there. So there you have it. This is my black and white elegant card.